Hi, Chrissy, and thanks a lot. It's good to be back over in Oz after such a long time. So, yes, we do still exist, Orion. We've been through a tough time, but we've come out of it, and we've come out stronger and better. The disclaimer, you've always seen that. Don't believe a word of what I say. Please do your own research. So a company focused in the Northern Cape of South Africa, the Northern Cape province of South Africa, 30% of the land area, 3% of the population. And in Africa and in South Africa, less people, lot less problems. And that's why we're in the Northern Cape. So we've got two big land areas combined. It's about 9,000 square kilometers of prospecting and mining rights, 4 executed mining rights now. And all of them are brownfield sites. And at the peak in the 70s, 60s and 70s, and actually going into the 80s, this area was producing 50 to 60,000 tons a year of copper. It had copper smelters that had all the infrastructure in place. It's produced 2.5 million tons of copper, and it's actually produced more than 2 million tons of zinc now. One of the world's largest zinc mines is in this district, the Vedanta's Gamsberg mine. So this is the country of big base metal deposits in South Africa, and it's a great opportunity, and it was left begging. And we spotted the opportunity 7 years ago. We were backed by Tembo Capital because John Hodder and co, they know how to see a good opportunity when it bangs him on the head. And they really were great supporters and got us going, and we very quickly put together one of the best land packages in South Africa. So where are we today? Joint listed, dual listed, Johannesburg and ASX. Only a very small portion of the shares actually actively trade on the ASX. Less than 15% of trading happens on the ASX at the moment. It all actually happens on the Johannesburg exchange, which in general runs at a premium in price. And that arbitrage never seems to get completely wiped out. It closes out, and then over a couple of weeks it'll open up again. We are predominantly European owned, believe it or not. So you've got Tembo and you've got the Delphi Group, and there's some other German shareholders. And now actually the new shareholders that we brought in, the Fleming families through their Clover Alloys, although they've come in through the Johannesburg Exchange, and Clover Alloys is a South African company. It is largely European money and very well known in Europe and in South Africa. Adam Fleming was the chairman of Harmony Gold, and Philip Kotze was an operations director during the rapid growth phase of Harmony Gold. So these are people that understand mining in South Africa and understand the brownfields mining opportunity. Still have Tembo as our biggest shareholder. Thank you very much. Great support of shareholders and have brought us this far. Now it's time to develop mines. And we're bringing in a suite of cornerstone investors that can take us to the next level, because we went through a tough time for 2 years. We've had bankable feasibility studies for 2 years. But bank financing for project financing for projects in South Africa is very, very difficult. It's not easy for junior miners. And we tried it. We did all sorts of things. Money is available. It's just horribly expensive. And we turned it around in the end, and we said, listen, there's a better way of doing this. Let's go for streaming finance, equity finance, and let's be at a place where we not leverage, where we don't have debt to service, and we don't have long lead times on production. We get into early production, we're cash generative, and we can start filtering money back to shareholders earlier. And that's where our philosophy is now, and that's where we're taking the company. So Prieska Copper Zinc Mine, the largest of our projects, it's a big VMS deposit. It's been mined or developed down to 1,250 meters, where you've got shafts and declined roadways all the way to the bottom. It's mined 46 million tons of ore. It's produced over 400,000 tons of copper, and it's produced over 1 million tons of zinc. It is known for very high quality concentrates, very sought after concentrates in the current market. The reason why they stopped mining in the early 90s is they'd mined that steeply dipping ore body all the way down to 950 meters, and then the dip changed completely and went flat at the bottom. It was going to require a different mining method. It needed recapitalization. It was all in the too hard basket. Anglovol, the shareholders at the time, decided to pack it up over here and move into Zambia. And this was left as a stranded asset. Fantastic opportunity for us because modern mining techniques really lend themselves to mining this style of ore. So most of the work that we've done is actually on mining this ore at the bottom of the syncline, this big grey block at the bottom here, 30 million tons. And this ore body is open in every direction. There's even a new footwall ore body that we've discovered that isn't drilled out. And we ignored the opportunity that above the water level in the mine, we do have to pump out 9 million cubes of water. But there is an opportunity that you've got more than 3 million tons of ore sitting above water at the moment that we can get into immediately. So it's so frustrating. You go underground today and you can see ore in the face. We could drill it and blast it, and we will be drilling and blasting it in the next couple of weeks and starting to haul it to surface. What Clover saw the opportunities by giving us the capital now, we can add a plant immediately. And their business model has been to build the first plant, get it into production, and over 18 months, they have now built 6 plants on their chrome and platinum projects in South Africa, all funded from the first one that generated that initial cash flow. They've paid back big dividends, and they've made the investment in Orion. It's Orion. It's a business philosophy that works, and it can work for us over here. And we are now very rapidly looking at getting into development of this ore up over here and getting a plant in and getting into production. So we've done a full bankable feasibility study by 2020, all sorts of excitement. We'd met all the metrics and we had the right NPV over peak capital, but it was a long lead time project. To get to a point where you're actually cash positive only in 4 years after starting to spend the big money, it's a big ask, particularly with the debt cost where it's gone at the moment. Interest rates have run wild in the world, and you can't be carrying that kind of debt if it's a single asset, if you don't have other sources of revenue. And that's where the big challenge was. So now, as I said, we're going smaller, go small to go big. That's our philosophy now. And we'll build it in modular, incremental stages. And I'd just like to remind people, this was going to be, and that is still our long-term objective. 5 to 6 years from now, our vision is no different. We will be producing $150 million a year free cash flow. That's the kind of cash flow that comes out of this operation. And that was done at a copper price of $3.05 a pound and a zinc price of $1.06 a pound. So there is actually a whole lot of upside in this project, and the sooner we get going, the better. So we just face challenges and challenges and challenges, and the one challenge makes the next one worse. The banks want you to rerun a study, so we must have run about 5 or 6 versions of optimization of the study because this bank wants it done that way, the other bank wants it done a different way. 4-year lead time, which banks, which consortiums. Eventually we drew a line in the sand and we said, no, where we've got to do the engineering now is in financial engineering. So we stood the project on its head and went for a completely different strategy. Instead of beating ourselves up and trying to get all the water out the mine in 2 years, well, let's do it in 4 years, but let's get production from other sources first. Let's get revenue first. Let's be focused on revenue production and profit production. Long before we get down to that big, beautiful grey block at the bottom of the mine, we can be in a positive cash flow position. So we're starting to pump earlier. The big pumps arrived on the mine over the weekend. Lots of excitement. The guys are busy installing pumps and getting that up and going. And at the same time, the contractors are all arriving on site at the moment to start production. So we'll have ore on surface very shortly. And the big engineering that came about is going for streaming finance with Triple Flag, the North American streamers. So we have a gold and silver credit. It's very small. It's about 3% of our revenue projection. And we've committed 75% of that in a gold and silver stream. but it gave us $86 million US dollars of upfront financing. Couple that with the Industrial Development Corporation of South Africa, they've put in $21 million equivalent, 250 million rand. That gives us a measure of sovereign risk protection. And that's where the big opportunity now starts for us there, is to get this moving a lot quicker. So all in all, what we can touch and feel and what we've signed up at the moment is $222 million of financing. And that takes us to a position, I don't have to do JORC and JORC 23 yet, because we're going to do it by demonstration. We don't have to do another study. We're now going to do it by demonstration, and we're dealing with investors that understand engineering and mining and operating in South Africa, so we can do it. So, as I said, mining at the top there to start and get going. Come up with a new mining method, not mining a big open pit and stripping 16 million tons before we get any ore. Now we're going straight to the ore on face, drilling and blasting, hauling it to surface out of existing declines and roadways. The other big project is 450 kilometers to the west is the Okip Copper Project. It's legendary. It was the first European mining in Africa, 1658. The Governor of the Cape went down there and started digging copper on one of our projects at the moment. This property has produced over 2 million tons of copper. It has a long, long history of production. There are 1,700 known outcropping ore bodies. 400 of them have got intersections of more than 1%. Only 27 of them have ever been developed. The opportunity there is huge. We've already got 11 million tons of JORC resources. And we've done a scoping study. That's all the little patches of all the deposits that are outcropping there. We've tied up 75% of them. That's our land holding in the area. So we've got 11.5 million tons of JORC resources at 1.4%. These are pre-developed ore bodies. These are things that we can get going very, very quickly. So that will be the next cab off the rank. Probably 3 to 6 months from now, water rights will be in place. We've got our first mining right, and we're ready to get going. Lots more to tell you about. Please come to our stand, and I'll tell you about the nickel, copper, cobalt projects as well, and everything else to come. Thank you very much. Before she beats